so critical for us in order for us to continue dying to the self for our own salvation. And faith is a supernatural gift of God that enables us to believe God's revelation without doubting. Believing God, relying on God in every situation, which we are all manifesting here. We are here because we believe there is God, and we believe in what Professor believed, and that's why all of us are gathered here to celebrate him in the way we could do best, the Holy Eucharist. The words of the Psalms we have heard, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. That's a statement of faith. That's a statement of indicating that I only rely with God. Do we rely with God? Today, in our very situation, to the family of our good professor, is a total reliance of God, on God. And that's why we have heard, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. Only a person of faith can be able to declare this. Do we believe in God? Number two, dying to self, as we get in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 13, verse 14, is being the salt and the light of the world. And I read, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltness, how can it be salty again? You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. And being salt and light of the world, simply put, is doing what we are supposed to do. Being a salt of the world is doing what I and me, you, are supposed to do. And the first step of doing what we are supposed to do in our life is always knowing who matters and what matters. And our good professor knew this very well. I remember times I met him, he knew who matters and what matters. I remember last year, I met with him in Mangu High School when he was inspecting classes, and His Grace asked me to go and represent him and receive him. And when he came, he greeted me and he asked me, how is the bishop? How is the cardinal? Then he told me, Father, I observe or obey two people. And I asked him, who? He said, first is my God, and that's why, Father, I have my rosary here. And number two is my president, my boss. And when I talk of God, I also respect my church. And that's why I want to know, how is my bishop? How is my cardinal? And then he asked me, is there anything further that the cardinal has been told by the president I do, I have not done? I was not very sure, but I remember what he did. He called Jogo to ask, have we done what cardinal was promised by the president that we should do? And I am saying this because sometimes we fail because we do not know who matters and what matters. If we believe God matters, we will always listen to him. We will always follow his decree. We will always follow his statute. I also say this because Professor was also salt and light of the world. I remember, I think 2016, 2017, we were in the Catholic University National Conference for Catholic Principles. And that is the time he was made the chairman of Kenya National Examination Council. And when he was addressing us, he said that I am a professor, a surgeon of international repute. But I went to a good school, Starehe. But I got grades that are normal. I got A's, I got B's, I got C's. But this nonsense of today, every student getting A's must stop. God is good. We all know what happened. It stopped. Because he was right, and he was able to stand and say, even these boys and girls, yes, they work hard, but we worked harder. The nonsense that I'm quoting him of getting A's all over must stop, because he accepted to do what he was supposed to do. As we say, we are invited to be salt of the earth. Mother Teresa is also giving us some tips. And she's saying, it doesn't matter, even if it is a drop you will put in the ocean of charity, it will make a difference. She also tells us, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. Kind words can be short, easy, but their echoes are truly endless. She also reminds us that let us live simply so that others may simply live. And she also reminds us that there is more hunger for love in the world than there is for bread. We focus more on bread. What about love to our neighbor? She also says, I prefer you make mistake in kindness than work miracles in unkindness. It is not how much you give, but how much love you put into the giving. We are not called to be successful. We are called to be faithful. Jesus also crowns this by saying, love one another. He did not say, love the whole world. Christ is telling us to love our neighbor. This is doing what we ought to do. And in so doing then, Winston Churchill reminds us that you have enemies, good. That means you have stood up for something, sometime in your life. In doing what we are supposed to do, we will have enemies. And that's why it is important even sometimes to ask people. I asked them this question, I think on Sunday. How many of us this month have encountered the devil? Of course, I was asking a congregation, and nobody indicated that that had happened. I asked them, how many of you have met God? Few did. Then I asked the rest, whom have you met? But it is said, if you have not met the devil in your life journey, probably you are walking with him in the same direction. That's why the devil had to meet Adam, because we are not in the same direction. And if you are walking with me, how can you meet me? So sometimes you are very happy, nothing challenging is coming your way. Don't be happy, you may be walking with the devil. God is good. But if you meet God in your journey, then it means you are walking in different direction with God. Don't be happy when you meet God, because you should walk in God. You should operate in him, through him, and with him. Finally, there is the issue of humility. Doing what we are supposed to do, we cannot do it without humility. And that's why the word humility comes from the Latin word humus, which means fertile soil. In other words, to be humble is to be ready to accept who we are, especially with our talents, abilities, limitations, and weakness. If you are gifted, accept that. That is humility. If you have limitation, accept that. That is humility. Professor never shied saying who he is and what he can do and what he cannot be able to do. And St. John Chrysostom says, humility is the root, mother, nurse, foundation, and board of all virtues. And as a rule, they say, the moment you recognize you are humble, you lose humility. God is good. If you hear someone say, you know, I'm humble, that person is not humble. You cannot recognize your humility. Others ought to. St. Augustine also said, humility is so necessary for Christian perfection that among all the ways to reach perfection, humility is first, humility is second, humility is third. You cannot learn humility from books. Mother Teresa tells us. You learn it by accepting humiliations. Humiliations are not meant to torture us. They are a gift from God. These little humiliations, if we accept them with joy, they will help us to be holy, to have a meek and humble heart like Jesus. When we are humiliated, we don't like it. We are reminded humility will make us great. And that's why then death is the greatest form of human humiliation. But out of this greatest humiliation comes the greatest glorification through resurrection. We are here because we believe in life after death. And because Professor believed in God, he will resurrect and he is with God.